Hello and welcome to Listen Up Landlords with Ben Beadle and me, Richard Blanco. For International Women's Day, we are bringing you a special edition where we dedicate the podcast to the voices and achievements of women in property. Our producer Sally Walmsley, Ben and I are delighted to welcome some brilliant women to the show, and we'll do some brief introductions now. Mandy St John Davey, MBE, is a former chairman of Women in Property. Now, you've bought and sold dozens of properties in the UK, Mandy, and invested internationally. Plus, you have a real passion for mentoring. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct. Yes. As a serial entrepreneur, a speaker, and a mentor, I've probably spent my life experimenting with opportunity. So, building multiple streams of income, working with other people's money, and turning hard lessons, I guess, into real results.
Fantastic. And part of your business focuses on design as well.
Yeah, so that was the latter part of my business, which I opened up in lockdown. And I thought it was going to be for residential, which is what I've been doing for the last kind of 25 years, but it wasn't, it was commercial. And there was an opportunity in lockdown for hairdressers. So I did two enormous projects in Cardiff and Swansea for interior design.
Mentoring young people is a passion for Lorraine Thomas. Lorraine, you set up View from My Window with a focus on affordable housing for disadvantaged tenants. Tell us a little bit about it.
It stems from my parents and a deep-rooted purpose that I still care about today. And when my parents first came to this country, nobody would rent to them. And somebody eventually gave them a chance, and they ended up sharing a room with two other couples. Imagine that. But somebody gave them that chance. And so it was important for me to view from my window to do the same, to give back, give people an opportunity that otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity to be able to put a roof over their head, and it not be dictated by the fact that they can afford it or not. They just needed somewhere to live and, hopefully would grow from there.
And you also visit schools to change attitudes and encourage more women into constructions and things like that.
Yeah, I really, there's a figure that is bandied about that there's kind of 50% women, 50% men that are in property at the moment. But in construction, it's rather less. And I think it actually starts from the home. Mum passed me the tool bag. Can mum, change a light bulb and it not be a male dominated thing? And then when you go into schools, that message should continue, that actually women can do painting, they can be electricians, they can be tilers. And so it's almost normal, but it isn't at the moment. And I think what I'm trying to encourage is that these opportunities shouldn't just be for men. Women can be really successful in male dominated environments and typical male dominated jobs. Women can do them just as well, but they need to be supported and feel that they can.
Hasmita Reardon, you also see the landlord as an agent for change, helping people to turn their lives around. Sometimes I think when I read your story, Hasmita, that it's almost like your tenants are part of the family.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about helping people in difficult situations. They resonate with Lorraine. When we came over to the country, I was a refugee and faced many challenges along with language barriers, nowhere to live, stayed in a camp with other people. So I'm totally grateful for having roof over my head. But as a child, it taught me a lot of lessons actually. And sometimes, I always believe now good things come out of bad, and that's what's made me the person I am today.
Yeah, and you've built up an amazing portfolio, haven't you? And I also read that your idea of downsizing was to turn your former residential home into a children's home.
Yeah, I built ourselves up to a massive 6-bedroom house. It was lovely for my children. I wanted to give them a nice home. But soon as the last one left, my husband said, "Oh, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll make this house really nice now the kids have gone." And So that afternoon, I came back and said, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to move out. This is going to be a children's home within the next couple of months. And he just goes along with it. He's just given up now. But yeah, it's working really well. It's Ofsted registered. I can have up to 5 children in there. And I really love giving that child an opportunity because they've had a really bad experience with abuse and everything else. So it's working really well. But I'm actually on my 5th home now since then.
Wow, amazing.
So, yeah.
Incredible. Lorraine, you told us a little bit about why working with disadvantaged tenants was such a passion for you. Tell us a bit more about your work mentoring young people.
Yeah, so I think that young people need to see people who look like them first and foremost. So diversity matters. And it's really important that they see people that look like them. They can aspire then to think, well, if she can do it, I could do it. Oftentimes, the people that I mentor, the young people I mentor, they've grown up in social housing or, council housing, and they don't aspire to own. And my thing is that everyone should own something, be that a house or even, if you're an entrepreneur, shares in your business. Everyone should have a legacy, own something. And so my mentoring program is about them. First of all, funds is a big issue. And so what I say is, whatever you get an opportunity to invest in a project that I'm doing, and that investment, you can get a return on that investment. So it's not lost money. And alongside that, you get the mentorship. So you get to see exactly what I'm doing. So you're learning, but you're also earning at the same time. And that's the difference I make. And I think it's important that young people see that actually, if I take X amount, £5,000, £10,000, if they can get to that, and I'm going to earn on that money as well as learn, I mean, it's a win-win. And that's what I'm about.
And is it about instilling that drive in people that maybe haven't had that?
Absolutely, because these young people, they haven't seen their parents or their grandparents or uncles and aunties buy. And what I'm saying is you can, and you may think, this isn't out of my reach, but it's not. And therefore, I also got a learn, earn and own program where you can couple together with others under a shareholders agreement and actually own the asset. And therefore, that's the start. So, and it goes back actually, when I think about it, to the way that my parents first bought in this country. They would put together something called a partner, and they would take a draw, and then that would help them to buy their first property. And it's almost going back to that same kind of ethos of you club together, and together you can then make a difference. And then from there, you can buy your own.
And does it always work, this type of approach?
No. And so that's the truth of the matter. There have been successes where, the mentees have come out of it, they've made a profit, it's great, they're on to the next thing. But there have been times where they've just got their money back. And some are still waiting for the money back. So we've gone for planning permission. That planning permission might have been declined. Then we've gone to appeal. That appeal might have been declined, but then we've come through. So something that should have taken a year, they could be, trapped for 3 years, but that is property. And actually, there's lots of lessons in that about risk. And so they learn a lot, but it doesn't always go well. And there is a challenge. And I think there's no dressing it up. They go into this with their eyes wide open, knowing that it is high risk. This is not an easy game. But in that, there is a journey, there's a learning, and that's what I'm about.
I was looking at the stats, Lorraine, on the number of women in on-site manual construction jobs, and it's something like 1%, according to the Office of National Statistics. I know you've worked on new build projects yourself, haven't you? What do you think it's like for women on site, when you're doing construction? Is the world moving on, or do women still feel quite kind of isolated in those roles?
It's really tough because people say, things have moved on, but actually, when you sit around the table, have they? Because men still feel she doesn't know what she's talking about, Or I'll ask another man because she doesn't really know. She might be running the project, but actually she doesn't really know what she's talking about. She hasn't really got a grip on the figures. And there is this kind of, we know more than you, and you're just here because you're running the project. There is that. And sometimes it's frustrating.
That's really an issue today, in
It's
2026.
still an issue today. Oftentimes where men think, they come in and they think, right, okay, we know, and we know more than you. And it's not the case. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. But there is this them and us on a site. And I think there's still a long way to go in terms of women holding their own. We can do a lot to help ourselves in terms of, to be taken seriously in terms of we'll get in and go in and get our hands dirty. But men still feel that they've got the edge, I think.
And I mean, you've gone on record as saying that you, moving on from this type of project, you want to focus on women that are in their prime and really helping those that have built a portfolio looking for some purpose beyond that. Give us a sense of what you mean. What's a woman in her prime, first of all?
Property is a great way to create wealth. And there are many women I speak to have now created that wealth. So they may have 1 or 2 properties, and they have several more. But what else is there for them? So they're quite comfortable, but that isn't what sets them alight. So I'm now saying, what can you now do to give back? Because this sense of purpose often plays out when you're comfortable. So you've made it to the boardroom table, or you've made it in your business and you're floating along, but there's more. And so I want to transition into helping women to create and find their purpose. What can they do now that they've made it? What can they do that sets them alight, that it's going to make a difference to a community, not just to their clients? It's bigger than that. It's something that, I've got there, and now what else can I do to help somebody else? And is that I want to feed 100 people. I want to care for 10 dogs' homes or something. I want to do something more than I've achieved in property.
And is that your rationale for sort of going into schools and championing women in construction and just not putting your feet up, just onto the next thing?
Well, I think there's a thing about how far can I go? But what is it that drives us? You can take on a career and say, I'm going to get to X. But there's more. I think that there's more in all of us. There's a bigger purpose. And so what is that? It's finding that bigger purpose. It's not just about, well, I can get a job here, I can do that, I can make loads of money. It's more about what else is there to give. And I think in all of us, we've got something else, but it's finding that. And oftentimes we don't have the space in our lives to look at it because we're so busy on the treadmill, just doing the day job, that actually that niggling thing about giving back, we haven't even got the space and the time. And so I want to focus on that. And it starts perhaps from a young age, thinking, I want to do this, but actually I could do something even bigger. I spoke to somebody who was brought up in a care home, and they figures around abuse in care homes is quite shocking. And they said to me, I'd love to be able to go back and help those kids in care homes. When I was in a care home, nobody really thought about me or cared for me or didn't understand it. I understand the struggle. I want to go back and help. That's what I'm talking about, a bigger purpose. So whatever they're doing, they're thinking, how can I go back and help those along the way?
This is the 2026 International Women's Day special of Listen Up Landlords with Mandy St John Davey, Lorraine Thomas and Hasmita Reardon. And Hasmita, I wanted to ask you about how you, first of all, built up your portfolio, because I believe that when your father sadly passed away in 1997, he left you and your brother £30,000, and you actually bought 3 terraced houses with that. And you built that up into a portfolio of more than 50 properties. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. My total figure was near the 100 mark in the end. I've sold a few over the years to reinvest in other things, but I'm still about 60 properties right now. I always say, that's it, I'm not going to buy anymore. And my bank manager just walks away.
Oh, right.
"You better do something
Right.
else." I'm like, no, I'm going to invest my money this time and I'm going to earn interest. And then next thing, it gets a phone call saying, "Oh, we need to release the money now." So, yeah, I'm still an impulsive buyer. Not so much with houses, because I tend to buy more commercial now because I'm trying to diversify the portfolio.
And it's become a family affair because you've got 4 sons, I think, who are involved. Is that right?
I've got 3 sons. You could
Oh,
probably
3,
say
sorry.
4 with my husband, though. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, sure.
Yes, I'm looking after 4 males. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, a lot of testosterone in the household. So how do they get involved, and how are they involved in running the
Yeah, I
business?
mean, the 3 sons, they were brought up with property, and because of what I went through, I've always instilled that work ethic in them and saying, "You've got to do something that's gonna always earn you money even when you're sleeping," and it's always been instilled in them. So, yeah, they're all involved. My son, up to recently, was managing the whole portfolio, but he wanted to move on and do other things, but he's still into housing. My middle son's actually helping me with the children's homes, and one of his is a children's home as well, and he's a builder as well. He does a lot of HMOs. And my youngest son, he does his own business, electricals, but he still does flipping properties. And my brother is obviously, he's way above me now. So, yeah, so we're all, and my mum, bless her, she's 92 nearly, but she's still got property and she loves it's still talking about it, and she likes to know every day what everybody's done. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Holding the boys to account. That's what I like to see,
yeah,
Hasmita.
yes, she's so inspirational. Yeah.
But you've also set up a charity, New Leaf Support. Is that
Cool.
right?
I set that up 15 years ago because, like, many people in property who want to give back, especially with our history and what we went through. Yeah, I set that up because when I started renting houses and trying to do it seriously, there was quite a lot of women coming forward saying, "I've got nowhere to live, no one to rent to me because perpetrators might smash the houses up." So I started renting to them regardless of anything. I didn't even take references. I just gave them a home. And then I didn't know how to deal with them. And then I was scared. I'm thinking, how do I support this person? So then I volunteered for another charity for 7 years, went on their board and really learned how to manage this. Yeah, the charity is now 15 years old and doing really well. I mean, I still have trouble with funding, but I've just carry on to go back to basics recently, but it is what it is. But yeah, so 3 of my properties are refuge places now, so that I can control who's going in and out and make sure that women do get homes, because again, although there's 200 refugees in the country, which isn't a lot, there's still criteria, and there's 1,500 animal sanctuaries, animal refuges. So that's the difference. So,
Wow.
yeah.
What would you say, Hasmita, to a landlord who says, I want to minimize risk, the idea of working with tenants who might come with some baggage, or be fleeing from domestic violence, indeed, that could bring too many possible problems. What would you say to them?
It doesn't bring problems because there's a lot of support out there from charities like myself. Most of the tenants I've rented to that have potentially people like landlords think they're might be difficult, aren't difficult, because they've been given a chance. They're really grateful. They come to the charity quite a lot. And you know what? Some, like we've said this morning with Lorraine, people just want a chance. And when you give them that chance, they're very, very grateful. In fact, I've got women in my properties that I housed when I first purchased them. So I'm going back 25 years now, and they're still in the houses. So no, I don't just go for it. It's just, I know it's difficult right now because we've got all these renters' rights and everything coming in, but just have to embrace it.
And yeah, well, I was going to ask about that, but is there a view that all of these other things might dissuade a new Hasmita from doing the same excellent stuff that you did sort of 20 years ago?
Yeah,
Is it making it much more
easy.
difficult?
It's so difficult because all the laws and everything to how you have to have your house. Obviously, my houses are good, but they still have to be at a certain standard that the government expect. And obviously the insurances and referencing and all that sort of stuff makes it so difficult. And I've always shouted about this, saying it's all right. I know you have to get rid of rogue landlords. I understand that, and I'm all for that. But don't punish the people that genuinely need my help. And that's I do struggle with it, because the rents are continuously going up, maintenance is continuously going up, and you can't then rent at a lower level like you used to. I totally agree. It's just so more difficult. So I'm trying to keep hold of the tenants that I've got and try and keep their rents lower as possible. But I'm just worried eventually I will get pushed out of that, because there's just because the housing stock is going down a lot more, because a lot of landlords are selling art. There's more tenants out there, less housing. Of course, a lot of landlords are more fussy, aren't they?
Well, they absolutely are. And that's leading me to another question I wanted to pose of you about, you must have seen so many changes during that period of time that you've been operating. How do you see the property world has evolved in, the last 20 years or so?
Well, it's got more difficult for sure. Definitely got more difficult. When I first started, it was actually fun. I was just, it was like buying, selling, and well, I wasn't even selling. I was remortgaging, buying more, buying 6 in one day. Sometimes it just became a game. It wasn't even about the money. It was a buzz, the fact that I had this thing. I didn't want to be homeless again. So I got a bit obsessive with it, I suppose. And obviously then that gave me a chance to help other homeless people. Yeah, no, it's evolved so much. I think it's just so much difficult, but I don't fear. I don't get fearful at all. I just go with it, and I'll embrace the next lot of challenges that come along. I've been through 2 recessions and I've got through them. When I talk to younger people now, when we go to network meetings and they go, I want to buy a property because I can give up my job, the thinking behind it is completely not how I used to think. I used to think, well, I'll buy a property, the equity will go up one day, and my sons will be okay. I will be okay in my retirement. So looking for income now is not an option. A monthly income out of it is not an option to give up your job. And I think that's where my mindset's gone back to that, where I think I'm not going to live off this properties. That's my equity. Equity will pay off all the time without fail.
Lorraine, and why are women thriving in property? I mean, we've heard 2 brilliant stories about businesses with a social purpose, but also 2 very talented businesswomen. And what the stats tell us is that 52% of agents are women, 45% of landlords are women. It's obviously a sector where women do very well. Why is that?
First of all, I think that women are very, very good at collaborating, and you need that in property. The other reason is that we're good at getting our ducks in a row. For people to succeed in property going forwards, they're going to need to really, really be hot on compliance. And I think women are quite good at that. And the other thing is they think about purpose. They think about the long game. So they now realize that this isn't a quick fix. Goes back to what Hasmita was saying. This is a longer game. And if you're in it for a quick win and you're going to give up your job, it's not going to work, not anymore. So women are savvy to the fact that they need to play a long game. They need to get their ducks in a row. And actually, they need to create something that's bigger than just buying the property. And that is, what else can I do? How can I impact and create legacy at the same time? That's why I think women are thriving, because they're thinking about the whole package.
And would you say it's a good time to invest with that in mind then, Lorraine?
The time is now with property. There is never a bad time because it's cyclical. So at the moment, there's a lot of pressures with compliance and funding and interest rates. But there's always been that, if we think about it. It's just it's just that we're on sort of the down cycle when it's all kind of come at once. And so if the first thing to think about if you want to invest is actually, why am I investing? What's it for? Is it to create generational wealth, or is it that I want cash flow? If you're thinking, it's because I want cash flow at the moment. You've got to take a longer term view. I think, will this produce cash flow if I don't get the compliance right? Because actually it could be more of a drain than actually producing cash flow and an easier life. But if it's about generational wealth, then of course, yes, now is the time.
Hasmita, how do you feel about awards for, property women awards, that sort of thing? A lot of people would argue it's important that successful women are visible and made to be more visible. Do you feel comfortable about them? Do you think that they make a positive contribution to the work that you and other women are doing?
Definitely, without a doubt. I've won numerous awards, especially with the NRLA over the years, and it sort of springboarded me. And actually, then people started, especially males, started taking me more seriously. So,
Interesting.
so I've won many awards. I don't even win them anymore because I don't go in for them anymore. But this year, actually last 2 years, this year and last year, I'm judged for the Kent Women in Business Awards. So I was really, I was so grateful to be asked for that, because it was another springboard for me and another achievement. And I just love, I'm in the middle of judging right now, and I just love reading all the businesses that are out there, and some of them are property. So yeah, no, I think it's absolutely wonderful to see so many women in a room, because sometimes when you're a mum, people say you're just a mum or you're just a wife. No, actually, we're serious business women that know how to handle a business and run it well. And I think, we do run it well because we just multitask as well.
Well, what advice would you give to women that are listening to this podcast about, how to get ahead in property management, investment, development, those types of things? Any pearls of wisdom, Hasmita?
I don't plan a lot. I have to say, I go in head first with everything and just go for it. I think people are too fearful, and sometimes I don't get that, because that's me.
Yeah.
But I love new ventures. Love new projects. When I went in with the children's home, I did go in with another partner. But since then, I've learned so much. And now I'm sort of being a consultant for other children's homes, because I'm renting my houses out to other providers. So something, just go for it. With property, I don't care what sort of property you get, you'll always go up in value. And even if you buy the wrong one, we'll always sell it and turn it around. I don't fear any of financial stuff like that, because you'll always get out. There's always
No fear, head first.
but that's me. Not everybody's like that. Everybody's some
No.
people are a bit diverse. Some people want to look into spreadsheets. I've never had a business plan. And I always think things work out in the end. I have been at auctions and I've bought silly things like a church and things I haven't viewed.
At least you
to the church.
for it to come good. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, my friends, I bought it blind, and my friend said, "Oh, has it got a graveyard?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." It's just,
Oh dear.
I do. It just gives me a buzz. That's the thing. So I don't go to auctions anymore. Not allowed.
I mean, we would always recommend viewing a property before buying it at auction,
I
of
know.
course,
I do
for
that
anybody
now. I've just been-
listening.
I've done that. I think I've done it 4 times, and I've been lucky. But yeah, I wouldn't do it anymore.
So I'd love to hear more now from Mandy. So Mandy, tell us a bit more about how your career got started, because you actually moved into property mid-career, didn't you? And I was quite interested by the fact that you'd sort of moved up the property ladder in terms of your residential homes. And then it kind of dawned on you that you could start renting properties and build up the business from there.
That's correct. So I've been in corporate for most of my life, and found that I needed to find something else due to poorly health. So it was at that point, pre-millennium, where property prices were increasing, and I bought a new 4-bed home. I had the car on the drive, and suddenly I had no income, single person, and thought I had to rejig something really quickly, thinking I had to sell, and I didn't. In fact, what I did in madness was to take all the equity out of my property and start investing in property. So initially, it was buying sort of older properties off new developments and turning them around, and I was renting. But then it was building off buying phases of first phases of sites, new developments, selling off the 4 bills and going back that far, there was a little kind of gap in the market where there was no tax on anything that you profit you made at flipping at 60% of the build. So I did that really, really quickly and built up a lot of new build homes, and then went into developing sort of older residential properties for rent.
Fantastic. So that sounds like a really smart business model, actually. And you then moved into buying internationally, didn't you, in Canada and Cyprus? Is that right, Mandy? What drew you to that?
That's correct, yeah. So my strategy for residential was income and capital growth. Both of those were two different streams, and I'd built up enough capital to be able to go and look at investing abroad. So the first time I invested abroad was in Canada. I'm an avid skier, and I loved sort of skiing. So that was my first venture, but that was off plan. And then the second time was investing in Cyprus, and I had that property for over 20 years.
Oh, wow, great. Now, you've been very involved in Women in Property, which is a fabulous organisation that runs these events for women to network around Great Britain. And you were chairman of Women in Property a few years back. Just tell us a bit about your work with Women in Property, because I know it's something you're quite passionate about, isn't it, Mandy?
It is actually, and I started at branch level in South Wales, and I was invited to be their national chair, which I have to say is the first in the 30-year-old history of women in property. I was the first Welsh person or Welsh lady to be invited to be national chair. So it was a strategic leadership role where the responsibility was for setting direction for the rest of the organisation and its members nationally, and ensuring that we actually delivered real impact across the UK property sector. And it was also to ensure that the organisation is well governed and financially responsible.
Yes. Sorry, I just spotted actually, Mandy, that one of your courses is called, or one of your talks is called Wales Breeds Strong Welsh Women. And
That's right.
so,
That was correct. Yeah, that was at a Students' Awards program in Cardiff, where I was national chair, and they invited me back to speak. So 14 branches around the UK, including Scotland and Ireland, and they all kind of work from a framework, if you like. So, and I was overseeing. So we do things. We were doing things like education outreach programs, a fantastic student awards program where we encourage second year graduates from the built environment to come in and apply for our student awards program, cross discipline mentoring scheme, which is hugely successful. And then each branch is responsible for doing CPD events, site visits, social events, black tie events, and so on. And but what we found that mid-tier of ladies and in professionals is hard to retain. So we have got programs together that are sort of for women on boards, making sure there's a fair representation of women being visible on panels and speaking opportunities and raising their visibility.
mm.
And also representing them at Westminster to make sure that there's a good gender balance. And No, Women in Property was very proud to contribute to the Lord Davis report, which is all about gender and equality.
How important do you think it is, Mandy, to still have these safe spaces for women where, you know, they're organised by women? It's focusing on inspiring and encouraging and helping women to develop, and it is an all-women environment. Do you think that's still important, that kind of safe space principle?
I think I've got a fair balance because my career is outside of that as well. So I do a lot with the male representation, but I do think there is a real place for women's network and a safe space. Not all women have the confidence. They start, properties very, very small, young properties where they need support, they need encouragement, they need the opportunities to grow. And I think that is a safe space with women and the networks and the connections and the mentoring and so on and so forth. So yes, there is still a place for women-only networks.
And coming on to mentoring now, Mandy, I see you've been involved in Big Ideas Wales with the Prince's Trust and schools and colleges, and that you run a personal mentoring program as well. I was really interested to see that you took a professional qualification in mentoring as well, which is really interesting because lots of us in property do mentoring, but not many people actually go on to get that professional qualification. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I didn't get it till I was 50, and there was no need for me at the time. I really didn't need it. But it's just one of those things you think, oh, I'll just give that a go. I didn't have a degree. And I just thought, right, let's just do that for my own self-development, which I think is really important to women and men. So my degree is in mentoring for entrepreneur in practice, which is specifically geared to women in non-traditional roles. And whilst my business was purely in building mentoring for property portfolios, this gave me a wider reach. So hence that I could look at lots of different aspects of, business startup. I started with the King's Trust, the Welsh government, for example. Um, but what was exciting and what was really interesting was that I was able to attend with a group of people to go into the Oxford Brookes University and look at how we can expand that into companies. And the scheme was called Mentoring for All People. And that again gave me another reach within mentoring.
I wanted to ask about your passion for interiors and gardens as well. I've seen some wonderful pictures on your website. How much of your work now is focused on this, Mandy?
Okay, so I'm coming up to that retirement age. I love interior designs, and like all, I'm sure, of your listeners here, when you're developing a property, it's always to a budget. And I was forever sitting on my hands. So in lockdown, it gave me the ability then to get into the interior design. So that is completely different to my portfolios to create something much different. And as I said, I created two beautiful hair salons. Gardens is always a passion. It's always good for your mental health to get outside. And I've done lots of sort of landscape gardening in my time as well. So yeah, it is a passion.
I wanted to ask you a bit more generally about why it is that women are succeeding so much in property, Mandy, because more than 50% of letting agents are women. Um, Nearly half of landlords are women. Why is it an area that women seem to do so well in?
I think I have to say women make amazing investors, and I've always said that. Just given the opportunity, they will make great investors. I think today women are far more financially savvy, they're far more independent, and they're really willing to collaborate with one another. So whilst they might not have that big money to get involved, they will look to their left and to their right and get involved with their colleagues to make it work. And of course they want some more flexibility. They don't want to be in that it's never 9 till 5. But I guess they want more flexibility to bring up their families. Women have got that, usually got the elderly parents kind of scenario coming in there. So I think there is a huge trend to get into investing in property and get into a different work mentality.
And do you think that women still face some measure of discrimination in the world of property, Mandy? I mean, there are obvious areas like perhaps construction where there are not many women. And some women say that, they do find that they feel a bit kind of pushed out in those sorts of environments. Is that something you've managed to overcome, or are you still finding that that can be an issue sometimes?
Obviously, in the early days when I started, which is over 25 years ago, I saw it, considerably going into rooms which, were all males, to be honest. And they didn't want to, that thought women couldn't achieve what they were achieving. That has passed. I really think that has gone. So it depends on what you're asking. Is it women that are actually employed, or are they self-employed? And that's two different things. If they're employed and they're working for large organizations, I'd like to say that the gender representation has improved, certainly at entry levels, but what we've got is still a stubborn problem at mid-career and leadership. And if we look back to 2006, it would be, wouldn't it, actually? Professional bodies have made diversity, equality and inclusion a sustained priority. If you think big, huge organisations like RICS. Again, where 20 years ago, there wasn't any consistent measuring and reporting. That has changed, and in 20 years, that has grown and it has changed. However, there are still problems with sites, for example, where there are no female toilets. You're looking at, some of my colleagues are working at, you've got still got male PPE where, it doesn't fit for women. So there's still a long way to go, I think.
Okay. Well, Mandy, thanks very much.
Well, before we go, we want to catch up with NRLA's Chief Marketing Officer, the lovely Carla Johnson, about NRLA's International Women's Day event, which I believe, Carla, Salford,
Manchester, at the Lowry, no less, on the 5th of March this year.
Tell us a little bit about what we've got to look forward to, what's in store, who's going to be speaking, that sort of thing.
We've got a great lineup this year. So last year was amazing. This year is going to be even better, I think. So we've got Victoria Valentine from Total Property. She'll be talking about the future of women in the sector. We've got Alison Thompson from Leaders Romans Group, and she'll be talking about her leadership lessons. And then we've got the fabulous Kim from Como Properties, and we've got Property Investor of the Year 2025, Chloe Farrelly, who will be joining us for some panel discussions about the next gen of women in property. And then finally, it wouldn't be an NRLA event without us putting some of our expert colleagues on there. So we've got some of the expert women that work across the NRLA on a panel to talk to everybody at the event about Renters' Right Act, MEES, and making tax digital. So it's definitely one not to miss.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to be putting my feet up that day and leaving it all to you. But give us a sense of how valuable networking opportunities like this are for women in property.
I think it's really important, and I think we saw that at the event last year. Property can be quite a lonely kind of career to be undertaking, and it's still quite male dominated. So I think women's experiences can get lost. What we saw from the International Women's Day event last year was women coming together, connecting, and continuing with those connections beyond the event.
And why do you think spaces for women's voices in the industry are so important, I guess?
I think they're important in every industry. I think it's great to be in an industry and to be able to look to your left and right and see people that you recognise and feel that you can learn from and work with and work alongside. I think it's hugely important, and I think women can add a lot of value to industry, particularly into property.
Is the event targeted at women who are new to property, Carla, or is it more kind of seasoned investors?
I would say it's both. Certainly, I think that's where the magic happens. So last year we saw people, new entrants into the market, turning up with fresh ideas, talking to much more experienced, seasoned investors and, learning from each other. So for me, that's where the magic happens.
I'm curious to know what you get from an event like this, Carla, as a senior woman in a property organisation, and indeed what the NRLA as an organisation gets from it.
Yeah. As a woman in business, I'm passionate about supporting women in their careers and their development. So personally, it's probably my favourite event of the year from an NRLA perspective. I think from an organisational perspective, it's a real opportunity for us to listen and learn and understand, the challenges that women are facing within the sector. And we can then take that away and, evolve our membership propositions around it to make sure that we're serving women in property in the best way that we possibly can.
Do you feel, Carla, that women are in some way shaping the future of property?
I think that property used to be something that was, it was very male dominated. I think it was quite tactical and operational. People are now seeing it as a long-term business to develop and sustain. And I think women are naturally very, very good at delivering those skills.
Yeah, and the stats show that, nearly 50% of people in lettings are women. It's one of those industries, actually, where the figures are very positive.
Yes. I think the figures are very positive, and we all know that each other are out there. I think it's about the NRLA providing events like this so that it gives us the opportunity to bring these phenomenal women together.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Carla, for joining us. And that's it for this edition of Listen Up Landlords. Do head to the NRLA website for information on many of the topics that we discussed today.
And we'd all love to hear from you on social media too. A big thank you to our guests and to our producer, Sally Walmsley, and to you for listening.